So a young gentleman got on a subway and sat next to a priest. And the priest looked at this young man. He smelled of alcohol. His clothes were all disheveled, and he had lipstick on his collar. And the priest looked away in disgust. And the young man's just reading his newspaper. And after a few moments, he looked at the priest. He said, "Excuse me, Father, I have a question." And the priest looked at him and said, "Yes. Tell me, how does someone get arthritis?" And the priest looked at him and said, "Well, too much alcohol, unclean living, and a basic disregard for oneself and mankind." And the young gentleman looked away and continued reading his paper and said, So the priest, having a moment of guilt, looked at the gentleman and said, "Excuse me, son, I'm really sorry. That wasn't very nice. How long have you had arthritis?" And the young gentleman looks up at him and says, "Oh, I don't. I was just reading here that the Pope does." So how many of you can relate to this scenario? You're out having lunch or dinner, or perhaps even coffee with a friend or a relative, and the bill comes, and you both grab it at the same time, having this tug of war of who's going to pay for the bill. Can you all relate to scenarios like that? I'm seeing a lot of nods. Yes. Okay, who wants to admit that they've ever ripped the check? Why do we do that? Why does it seem so difficult sometimes to just let someone else pay the bill and say, "Wow, thank you. That was so nice"? Well, today that's what I'll be talking about, the law of giving and receiving. For what you give, you receive. Some also call it karma. Our religious upbringings put most of the focus on the giving. I know I was brought up with my grandmother, yay high, telling me, "Oh, it's better to give than it is to receive." And that was just drilled in my head at yay high. It's better to give than to receive. It's in the Bible, of course. It's always better to give than to receive. But it's not only in the Bible, but I can assure you that it's in other faith traditions as well. The importance is, and the focus is on the giving. But for me, it's instilling the concept that it's better to give than to receive. They can really set up a sense of have or have-nots, or maybe this false sense of superiority, or perhaps for some of us it may show up as independence. For we so easily give, but we have a hard time to ask, or ask for what we want. The Bible says, "Ask and you shall receive," so it seems like it's okay to ask God, but not our neighbor. Asking for what we want does allow someone else to give of their gifts while we're able to receive. And looking in this room now and knowing most of you, we are a congregation of givers. Andrea, you're at the bookstore all the time, prayer chaplain, our board members, Marilyn, who's here every Sunday, giving of her time to our choir. I could go on and on and on. And giving feels good without a doubt. And we are blessed by all the giving here in this church. And I know that a lot of us also give to other organizations, whether it be our time or our talents or our money, financial support. And it is good to give. It does feel good to give. And giving is its own kind of receiving. Charles Fillmore, co-founder of Unity, says, "The law of giving and receiving is the law of substance that equalizes all things. To realize and maintain divine order, substance must have both an inlet and an outlet in consciousness and must be kept moving. To demonstrate substance as supply, the law governing it must be recognized and kept. One must receive freely as one receives. Readiness to give and readiness to receive are equally essential." So according to Charles Fillmore, one's not better than the other, for they are entwined for sure. So let me repeat the last sentence. Readiness to give and readiness to receive are equally essential. That statement certainly does challenge. It's always better to give than to receive. So why is it that for some of us, myself included, that it is hard to receive or ask? And I do speak personally here when I say that I still get uncomfortable when someone wants to pick up a tab or give me a gift, or someone offers to do something for me. Sometimes I just refuse it out of just the sheer embedded notion that, no, I should be doing the giving because it's always better to give than to receive. What I didn't understand was that I was blocking the flow of divine abundance to me, and I was also declining someone else's gift in their ability to give. So here's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. On a recent trip back east, a friend of mine who's going through a very hard time, financially as well as personally, wanted to pick up the tab after she and I had lunch. And I was really uncomfortable with that, knowing that what she was going through. And when the tab came, of course, my first instinct was to grab the bill, this is on me. And she said, no. She grabbed it and said, I really want to pay for this today. And I had to take a deep breath. And I knew that if I didn't allow her to do that, one, I was going to be affirming her lack and the place that she was in, and two, I was also blocking the flow of her just being able and wanting to give me a gift. So I gladly accept with a smile on my face and just told her how much I appreciated that, and I appreciated most of all our time together, which was just so precious. Now, I know some of us might keep this mental tally, if someone does something for me, I have to remember next time it's on me, and that can get exhausting too. Well, I was reminded a few weeks ago when I was at Unity Village that a heartfelt, sincere thank you pays the debt. That's all that's needed, is a thank you. There is no tally. I didn't understand the variety of ways that we can receive gifts until I saw Meridian Williamson, spiritual leader, writer, a few years back. And she was sharing this story one time. She was on her way to the airport, and she had stopped at a drugstore to pick up some items for her flight. And she was in a rush, but the elderly gentleman behind the counter recognized her and said, "Oh, my wife would really like to meet you, and I know she has a little gift for you. Could you just wait a moment?" So she waited. And she waited, and they still didn't come back. She couldn't wait anymore. Her flight was going to leave, and she was really pinched for time, so she left. And when she got on the plane, she realized how disappointed that couple must have been when they came back and saw that she was gone. She realized that she had blocked that flow. Granted, it was a time issue, but she realized that she had blocked that flow. So she just said a prayer and said a blessing for this wonderful couple and knew that that was okay. And I'm sure all of us have had similar moments where we've been pressed for time. It may show up as a pride thing that, no, we just don't want to accept this gift, or a feeling of unworthiness that we may block the flow of receiving a gift. And receiving does take on many disguises, doesn't it? Whether it be a monetary gift or a service. How about a hug or prayer, love, friendship? Or how about a compliment? Yeah, how about a compliment? When someone has complimented you, how many times you might have responded and said, "Oh, you don't mean that," or "Oh, my hair looks lousy today," or thought to yourself, "Oh, they're just being nice." We discount that. I have a cousin back east who, when you give her a compliment, she starts arguing with you. I've stopped giving her compliments because it's exhausting. Remember, God cannot give you what you will not receive. And God does give in many different ways. If we look at Jesus, certainly he had no problem of receiving. He received hospitality no matter where he went. As he and his disciples traveled from town to town, doors were always open for him, and he would go in and accept the gift of hospitality, food and room. Could you imagine if he showed up at Martha and Mary's house, knocked on the door, and said, "Hey, I just wanted to let you know I'm in town. I'm going to be talking in about in an hour over there. I just wanted you to know, come hear me." And Martha and Mary are like, "Well, come on in. Aren't you going to eat? Aren't you going to have something to drink?" "Oh, no. I couldn't impose. I should have had word to you sooner. Besides, there's 12 more coming behind me."